The blind millionaire dined alone for 7 years until the maid's daughter did the impossible. For 7 long years, the vast dining room of Nicholas Hayes had never truly felt complete. The long table was always set for many, yet every night only a single chair was pulled out. And then, on one autumn evening, a 4-year-old girl came trotting out from the kitchen, stopped in front of the blind man sitting at the head of the table, lifted her round eyes, and asked, "Don't you have anyone to eat with? Can I sit here with you?" It was just a very childish sentence, but it cut straight through 7 years of darkness, like someone suddenly flipping on a switch inside a room that had grown used to living in the dark. Nicholas Hayes did not need an alarm clock to know he had to wake up at 6. His body woke him on its own, as steadily as a clock that had run for 7 years without being off by a single second. He sat up in bed. The soles of his feet touched the cool wooden floor. In his mind, an invisible map took shape: 10 straight steps to the bathroom. Turn right 3 steps to reach the sink. His hand lifted, and the toothbrush lay exactly where it always did. Nothing had changed. In a world that contained nothing but darkness, precision was the only shield protecting him from chaos. Nicholas bathed, changed his shirt, adjusted his tie. Every movement flowed smoothly, almost without emotion, as if he were merely completing a sequence of commands that had already been programmed. He felt his way out of the bedroom, one hand sliding along the stair railing. 21 steps. At the 12th step, his left knee throbbed again, the old pain that had never disappeared since the day of the accident. At the foot of the stairs, Thomas was already waiting. "Good morning, sir." "Good morning." The two greetings sounded as light as a breeze passing through an empty room. The breakfast table was arranged with merciless precision. The coffee sat exactly where his hand could reach it. The bread was at its familiar distance. Eggs, knife, fork, everything lay in its proper time zone on the imaginary clock face in his mind. He ate without saying a word. The dry clink of metal against porcelain, the steady ticking of the wall clock, no radio, no television. Not a single living sound intruded upon his morning. The house was vast, yet there was only enough space left for the heartbeat of one solitary man. On some mornings, for a very brief moment, he could still hear Anna's laughter in his memory, and the small heartbeat that had once fluttered vividly within her chest. Those sounds had once been his entire world. Now there was nothing left but silence. "Today's schedule?" Nicholas asked as he set the empty cup down on the table. Thomas replied at once. 9 o'clock, a call with the legal team in New York. 11 o'clock, an online meeting with the partners. This afternoon, a financial review. Nicholas nodded. He took up his white cane and headed toward his study. Each tap of the cane against the floor rang out clearly, like the final period at the end of a day that repeated itself exactly like the one before. Evening, 7 p.m. The hour Nicholas hated most in the day. He sat at the head of the long dining table. The empty chair across from him, exactly 8 meters away, was a distance he had ordered Thomas to measure precisely many years ago. In the past, that place had belonged to Anna. Now it was nothing but an invisible void he could never reach. Thomas placed the dinner in front of him. "Sir." "Thank you. I'll be outside if you need anything." The door closed. The vast space instantly became frighteningly hollow. Nicholas cut a piece of meat, lifted it to his lips, and chewed slowly. Everything had been prepared to perfection, but his sense of taste no longer responded to that perfection anymore. Eating alone, in the end, is not about enjoyment. It is simply a way to stay alive. He was about to bring the next bite to his mouth when footsteps sounded. Not heavy, not slow. Small, clumsy footsteps pattering across the wooden floor. Nicholas froze. The sound drew closer. It stopped right beside the chair he was sitting on. A tiny voice rang out, clear and direct. "Uncle, are you eating alone?" Nicholas hesitated slightly. He turned his head toward the voice, even though he knew he could not see. For a brief moment, he could not find a proper answer. That way of addressing him was too close, too ordinary, and he had forgotten what it felt like to be called that a long time ago. Before he could speak, he heard the soft scrape of a chair being pulled. "I'll sit with you." A small body fumbled its way up onto the chair tilted slightly. By instinct, Nicholas reached his hand forward, then stopped in midair. He was not sure he had the right to touch that tiny world. Finally, the child's breathless, proud voice rang out, "I climbed up!" Nicholas lifted his hand and touched the edge of the table to steady himself. His voice became dry. "Who are you?" "I'm Lily Lopez. I'm 4.5, but my mom always says I'm 3. That indignant tone made the corner of Nicholas's lips twitch slightly, as if a long-forgotten reflex had just been awakened. "Then, how old are you, Uncle?" 39. Lily went silent, counting something in her head, then concluded in a very serious voice, "So you're older than my mom, and way, way older than me." Nicholas had not yet replied when hurried footsteps sounded from behind. "Lily, stay right there." The woman stopped at the doorway, out of breath. "Oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Hayes." She ran off from the kitchen. I only turned my back for a moment, and Nicholas raised his hand to stop her. "It's fine." Lily looked up at her mother, then back at Nicholas. "Mom, he's eating all by himself. That's super sad. Can I sit with him?" The room fell silent. Nicholas Hayes, the man who had spent millions of dollars soundproofing studios and meeting rooms so no one would ever hear him scream during his sleepless nights, was suddenly choked by 4 childish sentences. He's eating all by himself. That's super sad. 7 years. 7 years no one had ever said that to him directly, because adults are polite, because adults are afraid of hurting him, because adults like to avoid difficult truths. Children do not. He lowered his hand to the table, touched the plate, and gently pushed it to the right. Do you like potatoes?" "I do," Lily shouted immediately, "but I like fries more than mashed potatoes." "Fries are crispy. They go crunch, crunch. That's the best." A very small, hoarse, unfamiliar laugh escaped Nicholas's throat. It had been a long time since he had realized that sound belonged to him. "Thomas," he called. The door opened again. "Yes, sir?" "Prepare an extra portion of French fries and a glass of apple juice." Lily clapped her hands. "I like apple juice." Maria, the woman with neatly tied black hair, wearing an apron, stood by the doorway, still flustered. "Mr. Hayes, you really don't have to—" "Ms. Maria," Nicholas turned toward her voice. "How long have you been working for me?" "More than 6 months, sir." "In those 6 months, have you ever asked me for anything?" "No, sir." "Then consider this the first time. Let the child stay." Maria fell silent for a moment. Nicholas imagined her hands twisting together, her eyes reddening with embarrassment. "Yes, if you don't mind." "No, I just feel—" He paused, searching for the right word. "Less lonely." Thomas returned to the dining room carrying a large tray. On it was a plate of freshly fried French fries, straight from the kitchen, and a neatly placed glass of apple juice. He set everything down in front of Lily. "Thank you so much. Thank you so... Japm..." The little girl cheered, immediately reaching out and grabbing a fry that was still steaming. Maria hurriedly reminded her, "Lily, use a fork, sweetheart." "But eating with your hands is more fun," Lily replied firmly, her innocent tone sounding as if that were an undeniable truth. A very small, warm, unfamiliar laugh came from the head of the table. "Nicholas?" Maria turned to look at him as if she had just witnessed the impossible. Lily ate nearly half the plate, took a sip of apple juice, then swung her legs back and forth to a mysterious rhythm known only to her. "Uncle Nick." "Yes?" "Why don't you look at me?" The room instantly fell silent. Maria frowned in alarm at how direct the question was. Nicholas set the fork down halfway through the motion. "Because I can't see anymore." Lily stopped swinging her legs. "You really can't see anything at all?" "That's right. I can't see anything." The little girl nodded thoughtfully, thinking for a moment, very seriously, very childlike. Then Lily climbed onto the chair, moved closer to him and whispered, "Can I look? I promise I won't be scared." As Maria was setting a plate of salad down, she quickly said, "Lily, don't be rude." Nicholas interrupted gently, "It's all right." He removed his glasses, his movement slow and slightly trembling, not because he feared the child, but because it had been far too long since he had allowed anyone to look fully at his face. Lily was silent for a few seconds. He could feel her breathing so close that he caught the scent of cheap children's shampoo mixed with milk. Then she spoke, her voice serious like that of an adult. "They're beautiful. Your eyes are blue, like mint syrup." Nicholas froze. For all these years, people had only looked at him with pity, discomfort, or haste. Not a single person had ever called these useless eyes of his beautiful. Lily continued, "That means we're the same. My eyes are blue too." She grabbed his hand and placed it against her own face. "See? Oh wait, you can't see. But I can see. We're tone sur tone." Nicholas laughed. The sound made Maria turn to him, her eyes suddenly soft. Something in the mansion, once made only of stone, wood, glass, and steel, began to crack open. Grass started growing from those cracks. Then Lily spoke again, firmly, without pity, without sadness. "It's okay. I'll look for you." A sentence as light as a feather, yet it struck Nicholas's chest like a hammer. Not sympathy, not charity, but a simple, sincere, unconditional promise. Nicholas slowly raised his hands, hesitated, then wrapped Lily tightly in his arms. She was warm, small, alive like a heartbeat. Maria lifted a hand to cover her mouth, tears spilling out uncontrollably. Lily rubbed her eyes and mumbled, "I'm so sleepy." "Let Mommy take you back to bed," Maria said. "No, I want to stay here a little longer." "Lily, don't bother Mr. Maria turned to Nicholas, waiting for his decision. He spoke very softly, yet with the certainty of acceptance. "Let her stay." Lily climbed onto his lap and rested her head against Nicholas's shoulder. Just a few minutes later, she drifted into deep sleep, her breathing steady. Nicholas sat perfectly still, not moving. In his arms was a child who shared no blood with him, the daughter of the woman who worked in his house. Maria gently pulled out a chair and sat down beside Nicholas. She hesitated for a second, then whispered, "I'm sorry." She tends to say things without thinking. Nicholas shook his head lightly. "You don't need to apologize. I was eating dinner, but she is the one who made this dinner truly meaningful." Maria looked at him. She noticed the shoulders that were always tense, slowly relaxing. She noticed the way he wrapped his arms around Lily with such care, as if he were guarding something fragile and more precious than anything that had ever existed in this house. "It's been a long time since you last had dinner with someone, hasn't it?" Maria asked softly. Nicholas was silent for a long while. 7 years. Maria inhaled quietly. "Since the accident." She said no more. There was no need to ask further. The pain in his voice had already answered everything. Lily stirred gently in her sleep, her small hand loosely clutching the hem of Nicholas's shirt. By instinct, he bent down slightly and softly touched her silky hair. The faint scent of children's shampoo lingered. Simple, cheap, yet carrying something vividly alive. The scent of the present. "Is she always like this?" Nicholas asked softly. "Always," Maria smiled tiredly. "She isn't afraid of strangers. She doesn't hesitate. She only knows how to live. That must be freeing." "Freeing how?" "Living without carrying the past, without bearing memories, without carrying guilt." Maria looked at him for a long time, at the hands he always kept tightly closed, at the face that always held the world at a distance. "You're carrying a great many things on your shoulders, aren't you?" Nicholas did not answer, but the weight of his silence answered for him. Maria stood up. "Thank you for not hurting her." "It is I who should thank you for letting me meet her." Nicholas remained pensive for a long moment, then spoke very softly. "Once, I was also preparing to welcome a child." Maria froze. "Anna was nearly 6 months pregnant, a boy. I had already chosen his name. I even dreamed of the day I would hold him in this very house." He paused, his breath wavering slightly. "Then the accident happened. I lost both of them on the same day." Maria slowly pulled out a chair and sat beside him again. "I'm so sorry." Nicholas shook his head faintly. "The pain eventually fades, but what remains is the emptiness. I once stood at the threshold of fatherhood, but I never truly crossed it. I believed I would hear my child running through these halls, but the house only ever returned my echo to me." His voice grew hoarser. "I thought I would teach my child to stand after the first falls, feed each spoonful myself, stay up all night with a fever. But none of those visions ever came true." Maria gently placed her hand on his shoulder. "But tonight, you're still doing those things in another way." "In what way?" "You patiently waited for Lily to finish her fries. You let her rest her head on your shoulder and fall asleep. Those things are also part of being a father." Nicholas let out a small laugh, sad yet real. "It's not the same." Maria shook her head gently. "No, it's not. But it is still something very beautiful." The two of them looked at each other in silence for a brief moment. Then Maria gently lifted Lily and carried her away. Time passed quietly. Short days folded into weeks. Weeks overlapped into one another and silently turned into months. Lily was no longer a guest who came and left on schedule. She had slipped into the house as naturally as breathing, into the hallways that once held only echoes, into the dinners that once held only silence, and into the closed-off world of Nicholas himself. Every morning he still woke up at 6, exactly as he had for 7 years, without a single deviation. The same familiar, careful footsteps, the same soft tapping of the cane against the floor, the same scent of coffee drifting through the quiet air. Only one thing was no longer the same. The moment he sat down at the table, he would always ask, as if it were the first sentence that had to be spoken each day, "Are the two of them coming today?" Thomas, standing nearby, had to clear his throat very lightly each time to hide the smile threatening to form at the corner of his mouth. "Yes, sir." Nicholas nodded. He said nothing more. Yet, at the corner of his lips, a very thin smile gently appeared, so fragile that only the truly observant would notice it in time. It did not take long for Lily to take over the house. In the past, Thomas had kept everything obsessively tidy, carpets stretched flat like still water, decorations aligned in perfect rows, the kitchen cold and spotless. Now, "Thomas, what is this crunching under my feet?" Nicholas asked one afternoon. Lego, sir. The little girl must have left it on the floor." "Don't clean it up." "But leave it there. I Want to hear her playing with it again tomorrow." On the refrigerator now hung sheets of paper covered in messy drawings. A big man holding a white cane, a woman with long hair, a child, and beside them a huge yellow dog. Underneath, Lily had tried to write everyone's names in scattered letters. Nick, Malia, Lily. Family. No one ever said the word out loud, yet that was exactly how it felt. Nicholas began cutting down his working hours from 12 a day to 8. He transferred part of the management of the technology company he had founded to a new CEO and spent more time at home. Thomas noticed. "You smile more, sir." "Do I?" Nicholas asked in surprise. "Yes, and this place. Now it feels more like a home than a mansion." Of course, happiness is rarely allowed to flow smoothly forever. Catherine Hayes, Nicholas's older sister, noticed that her brother had changed. She was the one who stepped forward to run the corporation, sign documents, and battle the board of directors throughout the entire period Nicholas was in treatment and learning how to live in darkness. She loved her brother in a hard, controlling way, strict and often harsh. One Friday, without any prior notice, Catherine arrived at the mansion. Thomas had not even finished saying, "Mr. Hayes is in the living room," when she already heard laughter. Nicholas's laughter, mixed with a child's laughter and the sound of a dog barking. Catherine stood frozen at the threshold of the living room. Nicholas was sitting on the floor, leaning against the sofa, his white cane tossed aside. Lily sat on the carpet, laughing as she drew. Maria sat in a chair, holding a cup of tea, watching the scene with gentle eyes. Catherine felt something very strange rising inside her, bitterness, irritation, and fear. "Nick," she called out in an icy voice. Nicholas turned toward the sound. The unfinished smile on his lips slowly faded. "Cat, I didn't know you were coming today." "Obviously." Catherine stepped into the room, her heels striking the wooden floor in steady rhythm. "You're busy?" "Very busy, it seems." She glanced at Maria. "And you are?" "My name is Maria Lopez, Ms. Hayes. I work here, and this is my daughter, Lily." "I see," Catherine sneered. "I thought this house hired cleaners, not residents." Nicholas frowned slightly. "Cat." "You have 2 minutes to explain," Catherine said, without looking at him, staring directly at Maria. "Why is your child on my brother's floor as if this were her home?" Maria sprang to her feet, her hands clenching together. I just... "You don't need to explain," Catherine cut in coldly. "Nick, we need to talk in private." Suddenly, Lily spoke up, her voice trembling. "Who are you?" Catherine took a deep breath and looked at the little girl. Even though she disliked the situation, she had to admit the child was pretty and quick-witted. "I'm Uncle Nick's sister." "So you're alone like Uncle too?" Lily tilted her head. Catherine frowned. "Take the child outside," she ordered Maria. "Come on, Lily, let's go back to the kitchen," Maria said, bowing slightly. "I don't want to. I want to play with Uncle Nick." Nicholas felt the small hand touch his own. He instinctively tightened his grip. "Lily," he said softly, "go with your mom for a little while. After I talk with my sister, I'll come down." The child stayed silent for a few seconds, then released his hand. He heard her small sandals pattering away. The door closed. Catherine exhaled sharply, as if tearing off a mask. "Are you insane, Nick?" "I think so," Nicholas replied calmly. "But for the first time in 7 years, this kind of madness feels good." "Do you even realize what you're doing? She is an employee. Our family has spent a lifetime dealing with lawsuits. You know how many cases there are involving maids blackmailing and exploiting their employers." Nicholas remained silent. Catherine slammed a stack of papers onto the table. "Did you know she previously worked in 3 other wealthy households and was fired each time for crossing professional boundaries? Did you hire a private investigator? Of course. You think I would just stand by and watch you ruin yourself? She brought her child into this house and made you... Catherine waved her hand in the air. Smile. Neglect your work. Grow soft. Don't you see the pattern? Nicholas tightened his grip on the armrest. You're talking about me like I'm some foolish investment project? You are my brother, a man who can no longer see, a man whose entire fortune is in his name. Do you realize that if you lose the ability to make decisions, who will protect this family's reputation? I don't need anyone to protect my reputation. But I do, and I will not allow a maid and her child to lead you around by the nose. Nicholas stood up abruptly. The chair behind him jolted. Cat, for the first time since the accident, I don't wake up just to survive the day. I am truly living. Just because that means you can't control me anymore doesn't mean it's wrong. Are you in love with her? The question shot out like an arrow. Nicholas froze. He did not answer. Catherine nodded, as if she had already expected it. No, you're not in love with her. You're in love with the emptiness she fills. You see the child and think of the son you never got to have. You see her and project Anna's reflection onto her. The dead woman's name struck Nicholas like a slap. Don't bring her name into this. If Anna were still alive, what do you think she would say? That you should throw away your life, your fortune, your freedom into the hands of someone you've known only a few months? You don't know Maria. That's right, I don't, and neither do you. Silence pressed heavily between them. Catherine was the one who broke it. Tomorrow, the family lawyer will send you a new draft of the power of attorney agreement. It will strictly limit the ability of household employees to receive any money, gifts, or participate in your financial decisions. Nicholas let out a dry, paper-thin laugh. So you're forbidding me from having a relationship with anyone outside my class? Think whatever you want. If you don't sign it, I will take the next step. And that is? I will petition the court to review your legal capacity. The air instantly turned cold. You mean, have me declared legally incapable? Do you think I want that? I don't, but I will do it if that's the only way to protect you from yourself. Nicholas was silent for a long time. Finally, he spoke in a very low voice. Please leave. In the days that followed, Nicholas avoided Lily. He made excuses about working late and ate dinner in his study. At first, Lily still ran upstairs to knock on his door and asked, "Why aren't you coming down to eat with me?" Then, gradually, she fell silent. One evening, Maria gathered all her courage and stood in front of the study door. "Mr. Hayes." "Come in." She opened the door and heard the sound of the keyboard stop at once. I just wanted to thank you for everything," her voice trembled. "And I'm sorry if my presence and Lily's has caused you any trouble." "Maria," Nicholas wanted to say, "it's not your fault. Don't go. Stay." But his throat felt as if it were being crushed. In the end, the only thing he managed to say was, "I need time." The word "I" sounded unfamiliar even to himself. Maria understood. A woman who had become a mother at 18 and a housekeeper at 20 was already far too accustomed to doors closing because of who she was. The next morning, Thomas found an envelope placed at the foot of the door. "What is that?" Nicholas asked. "A letter from Ms. Maria." Nicholas reached out and touched the edge of the paper. It felt slightly rough. Unable to open it himself, he handed it back to Thomas. "Read it to me." Thomas cleared his throat and read slowly. In the letter, Maria thanked him, apologized, and explained that she would take Lily to live temporarily with her sister in a small town, so as not to burden your life any longer. She insisted that she wanted no money, nothing at all, except for Lily to keep beautiful memories of him. Nicholas felt as if someone had just placed a stone inside his chest. "Have they left yet?" "Yes, she already left." Nicholas jumped to his feet. "Prepare the car." "But I'm going to find them." Boston in November was drenched in rain, cold, dense, the wind slicing through layers of wool. On the road, their car was stuck in a long line of SUVs and sedans. An accident up ahead caused red lights to flash, sirens to wail, horns to blare. Nicholas shook his head. "I can't sit here and wait. Thomas, open the door." "Mr. Hayes, it's raining outside. The road is slippery. You—" "Open the door. If you don't come with me, I'll get out by myself." Thomas knew that when Nicholas spoke in that tone, nothing could stop him. He hurried around, opened the door, and tightly grasped the thin yet sturdy arm of his employer. "All right, I'll go with you. Hold on to me." They got out of the car and walked along the slick sidewalk, rain drumming loudly against the umbrella. Every step Nicholas took was a test of balance. The white cane tapping the ground, his toes probing the way forward, Thomas constantly warning, "There's a step here. There's a puddle on the left. Be careful." "How much farther?" "About 10 more blocks, sir." Nicholas tightened his grip on the cane. "We run." "You can't." "Please, Thomas." They nearly broke into a run. Rain lashed against their faces, stinging cold. At one point, Nicholas slipped, his knee slamming into the pavement, the pain so sharp he had to grit his teeth. "You're bleeding." "It doesn't matter." He stood up and kept going. The apartment Maria rented was on a narrow street with old red brick walls and a blue iron door with peeling paint. "Number 14B, Thomas said, breathless. Nicholas searched with his hand, touched the rough, flaking paint, and knocked hard. "Maria! Lily!" There was no answer. A door in the neighboring apartment cracked open, and an elderly woman's voice came out. "Are you looking for Lily?" Nicholas's heart clenched. "Yes, the child and her mother? They just left, dragged their suitcase downstairs a short while ago. Looks like they were heading to the Greyhound bus station." Nicholas rested his forehead against the cold doorframe. He closed his eyes, though there was nothing to see, and took a deep breath, struggling to keep a cry from breaking out. "We're not too late," Thomas said softly. "The station is 5 blocks from here." Nicholas turned, guessing the direction from the sound of his voice, and nodded. "Let's go." The bus station was crowded and loud, announcements over loudspeakers, rolling suitcases, people speaking in every kind of accent. "What does the board say?" Nicholas asked, gripping Thomas's arm. "The 3 p.m. bus to Albany is delayed by 30 minutes. Where did Maria say they were going in the letter?" "Greenfield, Massachusetts. They have to transfer in Albany." Nicholas nodded. Then they must still be in the waiting area. He took a deep breath. "Lily!" he called. "Lily?" A few people turned to look at the tall man in a dark overcoat, black glasses, and a white cane. No one answered. He was about to call again when the sound of small, hurried footsteps rushed toward him. "Uncle Nick!" Nicholas whipped around, his heart nearly bursting from his chest. "Lily?" A tiny hand slapped firmly into his as if to confirm it. "It's me. Why are you here?" He pulled his hand back for a split second, then grabbed hers again, as if afraid she might vanish. "I came to say I'm sorry." The smell of rain, the damp scent of a cheap coat, and shampoo blended together. Nicholas bent down and instinctively pulled her into his arms. "The stupidest thing I ever did was letting you and your mom walk out that door without running after you right away. I thought you didn't like me anymore." Lily's voice grew small. Nicholas felt his throat tighten, as if something were rising from his stomach straight up into his eyes. "I like you very, very much. I love you too." Maria stood a few meters away beside an old silver suitcase, still holding the bus tickets in her hand. She had heard everything. "Mr. Hayes." "Nicholas," he interrupted, still not letting go of Lily. "If you keep calling me Mr. Hayes, I won't forgive you." Maria laughed through her tears. I don't know if we can. I can lose my company, my house, my reputation," Nicholas said, using I for himself for the first time. "I can bear that. I've already lost worse, but I can't bear waking up tomorrow and finding that dinner has only one occupied chair again." Lily lifted her head. "You still have me." "Yes," Nicholas smiled, tears clinging to his cheeks, unseen, yet clearly heard in his voice. "And I don't want to lose you." Maria looked at the two of them, then at Thomas. The old butler gave an encouraging shrug, his eyes wet. She took a deep breath. "What about your sister, the court, the lawyers, your wealthy world? I can't survive in that world." Nicholas straightened his back. "I'll take care of it." He did take care of it. He returned to Boston and waited for Catherine to appear once more, this time with a lawyer at her side and a thick file in her hands. "Have you signed it yet?" she asked. "No." "Then I will proceed with the second step." "Go ahead," Nicholas said, his voice frighteningly calm. "But this time you'll be fighting someone who no longer hides behind closed doors." The legal battle lasted for several months. Catherine hired a psychological expert to prove that Nicholas's injury made him easily manipulated. Nicholas hired another to prove that he still managed part of the company and handled his daily life independently. In the end, Catherine's lawyer sighed and said to her, "If the family itself is not in agreement, the court generally favors the individual's right to self-determination, unless there is extremely clear evidence otherwise." One evening, Catherine came to the mansion without a lawyer this time. She only brought with her the bottle of wine they used to drink together in the years before the accident. Nicholas recognized her immediately by the sound of her heels. "I've never known Cat to walk quietly." "Shut up," Catherine said as she placed the bottle on the table. "Open it." "I'm blind, Cat," Nicholas laughed. Something old and familiar slipped back between them. Catherine poured the wine and sat down across from him. "I lost." Nicholas remained silent. "Not in court," she sighed. "But to you? Because you dared to do what I never could. Pull your life out of the wreckage and place your bet again." Nicholas touched the rim of his glass and slowly turned it. "I just couldn't bear eating dinner alone for another 7 years. I've met her, Maria, and the child. Lily said I'm a difficult woman, but probably a good one." Nicholas laughed. "Did she really say that?" "She did?" Catherine shrugged. "I don't know whether she loves you or not, but one thing is clear. The house is different now. It's no longer a luxurious tomb." She stood up, walked toward the door, then turned back. "If she ever hurts you, I will destroy her." "I know. But if I ever hurt you," Catherine pressed her lips together.